Vibrato is a technique that allows guitarists to sound very vocal and emotive when performing lead lines. It is also something that provides them with a unique opportunity to sound really quite profoundly dreadful if it's not done well. So we're going to look at a few different ways of performing vibrato and hopefully avoid some pitfalls along the way. Now, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, and I think I might be up to about 7 or 8 of you now, so well done me, you'll know that I like to practice things in context. So I have here a little backing track in the form of a loop that I've just recorded in C minor. It goes like this. Seems a suitable setting to do something with vibrato. So what I'm going to do to begin with is just play a very simple melody using the C natural minor scale. It'll go something like this. Which is alright, but a little bit on the sterile side, so we're going to try and liven that up a little bit with our first vibrato technique. Now what we're going to do here is something borrowed from the classical world. It's what you might call horizontal, side-to-side movement vibrato. So on each of the notes that I'm going to hold, I'm going to rock the hand back and forth like so. Get a very subtle kind of a shimmer on the note. It's not as extreme as a lot of vibrato you hear on electric guitar, but we'll come to all of that. So side to side movement. Things to bear in mind here. I think it's most effective if you bring the thumb away from the back of the neck of the guitar and use it as a kind of a weight to pull side to side. Apologies for doing that motion to you, but you get the idea. Now, things that can go a little bit wrong here, if the grip is too loose, you might find you go over the frets. So you want to make sure it's steady enough to stay in the right place. But likewise, you don't want to grip too hard on the back of the neck, because then you'll end up wobbling to absolutely no avail at all. So it's quite a gentle side-to-side movement using the weight of the hand, again, sorry for that, to produce the vibrato effect. Let's see how that sounds with it. Little bit more effective. As I say, a little bit on the subtle side for a lot of electric guitar styles, so let's get a little bit more extreme now. So a far more common technique for performing vibrato on electric guitar is a more vertical motion, where you're pulling the string slightly sharp, effectively, and then letting it return to pitch. When you do this, you're either going to be doing it with the first finger or not the first finger, if that doesn't sound too deep. And the technique for doing it is slightly different, so we'll deal with how to do it with the first finger first. It would go something like this. Where we are just pulling the string and then letting it return to pitch. The position for doing this that I find most effective, you notice in contrast to the last example, we got the thumb right over the top of the neck to keep the hand steady, and we're leaning against the guitar neck like that. You don't want to be kind of have a straight hand position underneath the neck and kind of try and pull the string like that, because you're not going to have any kind of control over it like that. So we're resting against the guitar neck like that at a bit of an angle, thumb over the top, and we're pulling the string down from the wrist. You don't want to be stretching or extending the finger. Notice that is completely solid, just locked in position. Some things that guitarists get a little bit wrong here, at least when they're starting out. The coordination is really, really important. You want to make sure, first and foremost, that you play a good note and then add vibrato to it. Don't let the left hand get overexcited and start moving before you've actually picked it, because then you start on a note that's sharp, and that's a really jarring kind of effect. So you want to make sure that the first sound you hear is a good, clear note, and then apply the vibrato to it. The other thing that can go a little bit wrong here commonly is the smoothness of the curve. So in other words, people sometimes bend the string and accidentally keep it held in the sharp position, and again that gives a very kind of a jarring sound. You want to make sure that the note always returns to where it wants to be, and you want to try and keep that movement as smooth and as steady as possible. If you end up speeding up and slowing down, again, it's sort of not a great kind of a sound. So you're aiming to just keep that as steady and consistent as possible. Takes some getting used to, of course. You'll probably find it does sound pretty horrific if you're brand new to it, but keep at it and you'll really develop the strength in the hand. Let's give that a little go over our track. So next up we're going to look at doing basically the same thing, a vertical vibrato technique, but with the third finger. Now when you're performing the vertical vibrato with the third finger, or indeed the little finger or the middle finger, very much the same kind of consideration that we had when we were doing it with the first finger. The angle is going to be very, very similar, where we've got the thumb over the top of the neck and we're just leaning like that. Remember, you want to avoid that kind of straight hand position here, because I think there's going to be some mishaps pitch-wise if you do that, because it's just far too difficult to control the movement of the string. You want as steady a grip as possible, and remember the movement is from the wrist. You're not extending or bending with the fingers at all. Now when you're performing the vibrato with, let's say, the third finger, you've obviously got some fingers spare here to add a little bit of support. Now what I will typically do is have the middle finger on the string as well, just behind it, add a little bit of extra support. You notice the first finger, I often curve right around like that, which helps mute any of the other strings. Because if you really go for it with a vibrato, you notice you can sometimes knock some of the other strings open, which you're not going to want. So the first finger just helps keep the sound really clean and controlled by muting like that. Otherwise though, very much the same kind of a thing that we were doing with the first finger. We're after that smooth kind of curve with the pitch, and that same angle there as well, as I mentioned. Alright, so let's see how that goes. Now, having said all that, I would conclude with a brief word of caution. In my humble opinion, it is a technique that guitarists use a little bit too much a lot of the time. And even when it's done really well, it can start to sound a little bit dreary and repetitive when it's used as a little bit of a reflex for every single note. Most of us are probably familiar with the truly blood-curdling sound of some reality TV show singer who oversouls the song, where they're performing vibrato absolutely all over the place rather than just singing the melody. Well, guitarists are just as guilty of that a lot of the time in their lead playing. Not every note needs vibrato. So just be aware of that. To be used sparingly to have the most effect, I would say. But I hope the techniques shown there are of use to you, and if so, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you with something else really soon. Cheers.